My name is John Drabert. Welcome to the Bible Story Podcast, and thanks for taking a bit of your time to learn and grow in a relationship with Jesus. Now, we're in the third part of a three-part series on the miracles of Jesus found in Matthew chapter 8 and Matthew chapter 9. Now, first episode was about Jesus calming the storm and the waves when they were crossing the Sea of Galilee. The second story was about Jesus casting out demons from two men. Today we're going to be looking at the final story and how Jesus has the authority to forgive and heal. Today's passage is found in Matthew chapter 9, verses 1 through 7. Let me read that for you. Jesus climbed into a boat and went across the lake to his own town. Some people brought to him a paralyzed man on a mat. Seeing their faith, Jesus said to the paralyzed man, "Be encouraged, my child. Your sins are forgiven." But some of the teachers of religious law said to themselves, "That's blasphemy. Does he think he's God?" Jesus knew what they were thinking, so he asked them, "Why do you have such evil thoughts in your hearts? Is it easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or stand up and walk? So I will prove to you that the Son of Man has the authority on earth to forgive sins." Then Jesus turned to the paralyzed man and said, "Stand up, pick up your mat, and go home." The man jumped up and went home. So what is going on here in this story? I mean, there's a lot of characters. There's the friends that bring the paralyzed man to Jesus. There's the paralyzed man himself. And then there's the religious leaders who haven't really said anything except Jesus kind of knows their thoughts, which is quite strange. So here's what's going on. The religious leaders, they're upset. They're thinking to themselves that only God can forgive sins. And you know what? They are right when they say that. The trouble is, the thing that's getting them hung up on things is they think Jesus is simply a human. He was there in the flesh. He was fully human. They didn't realize that he was also fully God. And so they say to themselves, it's blasphemy. He is making himself equal with God. And they were very upset. So that is the first part. The second part of this story is after Jesus tells this man that he's forgiven, he proves that he has the authority to forgive sins, and he does this by healing the man, saying, "Stand up and walk." And so what's interesting about this story, about him saying, "Stand up and walk," and the man doing so and going home, is that Jesus then proves that he does have the authority to forgive. Because if you think about it, who but God can make somebody walk with simply the spoken words that he used? Get up and walk. Only God can do this. In fact, that is how God created the universe. He said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Let there be fish in the sea and all sorts of things, birds in the air. He created all these things by his spoken word. And he heals in the same way. He says to the man, "Stand up and walk." He heals by his spoken word. He is, in fact, God. Okay, so Jesus is God. He has the authority to heal and forgive. But, so what? What's the big deal behind this? And to find and to learn the big deal for this, we actually have to go into this man's experience and begin experiencing his transformation himself. Jesus was holy. And I imagine as this man was looking up at Jesus from his mat, he was experiencing something in himself, a storyline that we aren't privy to. Perhaps he was thinking to himself, I'm not worthy to be in this man's presence, to be with him. Or maybe he's thinking, I've done so many things. I've thought so many bad things. I've been so harsh to people. I don't deserve to be healed. Lord, God, I am so sorry. And so Jesus' response, perhaps that's what he was thinking, and if it was, and remember that Jesus knew the thoughts of the religious leaders, so it's not so outlandish that he knew the thoughts of this paralytic man. And so he says to the paralytic, my child, be encouraged. Your sins are forgiven. And this paralytic man was overwhelmed. And beyond that, he becomes healed. He stands up and he walks home. And this changes everything for him. He can go home, and for the first time, he can hold down a job and get paid. He can play with his nephews and nieces, something that he hasn't maybe ever been able to do. And if so, it's not been for a very, very long time. He's able to help out with the chores around the house. He can care for others in ways that he's just never been able to before. He has a self-esteem, feeling good about himself and how he contributes to the greater good of others, that is growing and is healthy and is valuable. Jesus' forgiveness of this man changes how he relates to God, but also how he relates to the people in his life, to others. He thinks of himself differently now because he is forgiven. He's no longer the wretched person that he thought of himself before. God has reformed, or he has put a new lens on his story. He is telling his story differently now, because Jesus has forgiven him and Jesus has healed him. He has a new chance at life. This is the type of thing that comes about when Jesus forgives and heals. When he forgives and heals people like you and me, good things, a new story begins to form. I am so grateful that Jesus has the authority to forgive and to heal. He can rewrite your story with just a few words. Your sins are forgiven. Stand up and walk. Now, your story might not be like the paralyzed man. In fact, definitely it's not. Most people aren't paralyzed. And if you are, your story still isn't the same as the paralytic man. Your story is uniquely yours. You still need Jesus. You still want Jesus. You want him to work in your life like he did the paralytic man and give you a new story. Let's get into some discussion questions now. Question number 1. How does forgiveness allow us to relate to others and God differently? Hit pause and share. Question number 2. We all need healing of some kind. It may be physical, emotional, mental, or relational. Jesus told the paralyzed man to get up and walk. What phrase might he say to you for healing? Hit pause and discuss. Question number 3. How might you prepare to encounter Jesus in a significant way? Hit pause and share. Thank you for spending a little time with me today. Pray with one another. In fact, it would be a great idea if you wrote down some of the prayer requests of your friends and just prayed for them throughout this week, every day. It would be an awesome thing for you to do. It would be much like the friends of the paralytic man bringing their friend to Jesus. Remember that Jesus has the authority to forgive and he has the authority to heal. And that will change anybody's story. One more thing before you go. I would love for you to join me at Covenant Bay Bible Camp this summer. You can find more information at covenantbay.ca. Have a great week. Take care.